Hi, my name is Dave Mountain, and I am an email marketing consultant for Marketing&Advertising.com. Today we're going to talk about under-the-hood email metrics, what they are, why they matter. We'll talk about them from a positive as well as a negative engagement standpoint, as well as a more neutral or just user engagement standpoint. All of these things have an impact on your sender reputation, and we'll figure all that out and give you some next steps. Let's go. So what is an under-the-hood email metric? The thing about email is it will generate metrics from use beyond what normal people will think about. In general, when someone's sending out a marketing email, they want to know how many people opened it, how many people clicked on it, and how many people bought from it. And that might be about it. However, if that is all that you're limiting yourself to, there are a host of other data points that you're ignoring that could be causing significant harm to your email program, or at the very least, an opportunity loss. So these metrics fall into three buckets: positive engagement, opens, clicks, purchases, conversions. This is not spam indicators, etc. Negative engagement, which would be a soft or a hard bounce, an unsubscribe, spam, or a phishing complaint. And what I like to just call user engagement: glance, read, skim levels, multi-open, multi-click, long tail, which is the rate of use over time, how many times someone printed the email or forwarded it or responded to it directly, assuming that you've set it up so that they can do that. All of these metrics have a potential impact on how often you're going to get to the inbox. It is difficult to say exactly how much each factor has because all that is black box information. If Google, Yahoo, etc. were to just simply publish everything that goes into their sender reputation determinations, it would make it extremely easy for unscrupulous users to game the system. So this is a secret formula that they are in all likelihood continuing to modify. However, what I have learned over 20-odd years of doing email work is that when you are poking around some of these lesser-known metrics, you are finding clues as to why your inboxing is going well or why it's not. The positive engagement metrics are pretty obvious: opens, clicks, purchases, conversions. These are common. They're a common key performance indicator, and in general, keep in mind that an absence of a positive is not a positive. So if you had a 30% open rate on one of your emails, but the next one got 4, that's not, don't feel great that 4% opened it. This is positive only in relation and context to itself. It is important for email marketers not to over-optimize for positive engagement, especially for single KPI pieces. You can ruin an email program with a high open rate. You can trash a list with something that gets a lot of clicks or even some purchasing. If that winds up making you look spammy, turning off a lot of users, harming your sender reputation, etc. It is really easy to optimize for positive engagement on short-term performance. I've been at places where we desperately needed to make Q4 numbers, and we did, and then completely killed our ability to make any numbers in Q1. You have to look at negative engagement as well as positive engagement, and you have to embrace deviation from mean from both of these. The negative engagement pieces, the most often are considered is bounce and unsubscribe. Bounce is when the email doesn't get there. It can do so in two forms: soft or hard. Soft is the inbox is full, there was some other difficulty issue, you can try it 3 times before it becomes a hard bounce. Soft bounces are not great. Obviously your email didn't get to the box, but they're not as bad as hard bounces. Hard bounces are a serious problem. If somebody unsubscribes from your list, know that while not the best outcome, it's far from the worst. People should be able to unsubscribe from your list easily, readily, without trouble. They do so in a way that means that they will not mark it as spam or they'll not mark it as phishing. These are things that email service providers take very seriously, whereas an unsubscribe rate, assuming it's relatively consistent, is not. Assuming your unsubscribe rate isn't spiking past 0.3, you're not going to run into serious issues with your sender reputation on this. Track it. Do what you can to limit it. But know that if your unsubscribe rate is 0, that's actually a problem because it's suspicious. In general, people do not unsubscribe from spam because it's spam, and they would figure that an unsubscribe rate will get them more spam. If no one's ever unsubscribing from your list, that's not a good sign. There should be a consistent, hopefully small, number of people opting out because they're no longer interested in receiving your email for whatever reason. Make it easy on them, and hopefully they'll come back when they are interested in receiving it again. In any event, all these negative engagement pieces need to be tracked and need to be monitored. User engagement is kind of a catch-all of all the things that are not necessarily positive or negative. So what did the user do with the email, assuming they just didn't ignore or delete it? In general, this is not something that a lot of people consider beyond, say, open, click, and spend, because it doesn't directly relate to the profitability and it doesn't relate to the list size for later, but it's a key indicator. In some email service providers, they will fire a pixel on the email at 2 seconds and then 8 seconds, and this will tell them the percentage of user that glanced, which is to say didn't get the first pixel, skimmed, did get the first pixel, or read, got the second pixel. And anything over 8 seconds they would consider a read. This is a suspect metric because it's a suspect method. Not all the pixels will fire, not in all email devices, not in all browsers, etc., etc. However, it's the same suspect metric from email to email. So if your read rate went from 80% to 20%, that's a clue, even if 80% and 20% weren't the actual read rate. Know it, keep an eye on it, look for deviation from mean. In general, deviation on glance, read, skim tends to imply particular moments of content. So the same issue comes up with multi-use. Multi-use is the number of opens divided by the number of unique opens, or the number of clicks divided by the number of unique clicks. This can be skewed. If you've got a coding error, you can have really off numbers in some of these and loading fonts, etc. But in general, multi-use is, again, one of those contextual clues pieces. If you've got something that is getting twice the amount of multi-opens or multi-click engagement than something else, then what you probably have is beloved content that people are referring to or getting deep into, and the first one might just be a receipt. So that's another thing to keep in mind because, again, it's a clue of whether this email is doing the thing you want it to do or not. I also like to know how long my engagement is. In general, email is going to give you most of the bang for the buck in the first 6 hours or so, depending on your day parting, depending on your offer, depending on the day, on what exactly you're sending. If something's getting stuff 2 and 3 and 7 days later, and it's a significant percentage that is higher than the other emails that you've sent recently, again, it's a clue that gives you an idea of, oh, we went long with this content and the long tail was good, or oh, we went long with this content and we sent it on a weekend and we got people saving it and spending more time with it. Oh, we went long on this content, sent it on a weekend, and yet it didn't do as well as other times that we've done the exact same thing. Again, it's clues for content, clues for engagement. Some ESPs will also tell you how often your email has been printed or forwarded. Again, high deviation can be a learning experience, especially if it's something unique to the creative. But in general, this is one that won't come up too often. I also strongly encourage, whenever possible, setting up an address where the user can reply directly to you. This will seem old school or out of touch to some users, but the nice part about encouraging a direct reply from anyone on your list is that no one ever directly replies to spam. And consequently, a direct reply to an email is a really good indicator to an email service provider that your stuff is legit. Let them reply directly. Don't send it from a do not reply address. Give it to somebody as a job to monitor that content. They're going to get some spurious replies, of course, but price of doing business. Sender reputation is a 0 to 100 score that measures how trustworthy your email is. It will measure it based on the internet protocol address the email is being sent from. Either that will be dedicated if you're sending out a significant amount of email, or it will be shared if you're sending it through a mass provider or haven't had that set up previously. Sender reputation gets tweaked by a number of factors, some of which are guesswork, because an email service provider is going to keep this in the black box. In general, it encourages list hygiene. So it encourages you sending only to people who've opened recently, making sure that you've cleaned out any obviously bad email addresses, making sure you're not sending to spam traps, etc., etc. You need to know your sender reputation, and you can find yours, again, at senderscore.org. If you're on a shared IP, it's probably going to be perfunctory because you're going to be lumped in, hopefully, with a lot of people doing good email practices. If it's bad, push back. If it's a dedicated one and your email server and your sender reputation is not great, this is your strong wake-up call to go and start looking at some of the ways to solve on that. And that wraps it up. In general, with all these under-the-hood metrics, look for deviation from mean. They can be hard to find, especially on some of the multi-use pieces, and if your creative isn't fluctuating very much from content size or length or determination or day parting. Stay humble. If you think you've learned something from deviation from mean and you've got a good idea that this is best or strong practice, check it again in 6 months, because there's a really good chance that it won't be then. And you need to follow the email Hippocratic Oath, do no harm. In general, when dealing with management or clients, the under-the-hood email metrics will be interesting, but they're only interesting to a point. They're only interesting to a point of serving the greater good of the success of your email program. If your multi-open is great and your read glance skim rate is fantastic, but no one opened it and no one bought anything, that's not a good email. These are minor metrics. They are not major metrics. You need to know them to know the health of your program, but don't obsess about them, because you're not in business to run an email program. You're in business and your email program supports that. So there are times when you're going to have to do things that aren't great for some of your metrics. At least know where the damage is occurring. As always, encourage engagement. Get people replying to your emails. Get out of the spam folder by not looking like spam. And embrace the journey. Email is a constant testing environment. It's a constant learning cycle. And as such, there's always something new to try, and there's always something new to learn. Thank you for your time, and if you'd like to hire us, or if you'd like to ask any specific questions about the email channel, there's the phone number, 609-955-1514 in the US. There's the email address, there's my LinkedIn address, and there's the URL for the merry collection that is Marketing and Advertising Direction. Thank you for your time, and talk to you soon.